Hey, what's up everybody? So I thought this would be an interesting video for some people that are interested in genetics and history and how it all possibly relates to what we eat today. So this is my DNA test that I got done through 23andMe about, I think it was a year ago, something like that. But this is one of the coolest things and most constructive things I've ever done in my life. This is basically the reason that I started eating only meat, because it brought up a celiac genetic marker. And once I saw that genetic marker and I put that together with 2 and 2 on all of the symptoms I have been experiencing over the last 10, 15 years, if not my whole life, it all clicked, and it was all due to this genetic test. So I highly recommend getting a DNA test done, because it can open up a lot of doors as far as health and maybe send you in the right direction. So this is what I got here for my results. I wasn't too surprised, but I was kind of surprised about some of it. Let me just tell you what I thought I was before I got this test. Before I got this test done, I was told that basically we were almost all German, maybe a little bit of Irish, but we're talking 75% to 100% German almost is what I was told, because I have German coming from both sides of my family. Very strong German, strong people on my dad's side as well as my mom's side. So when I got some of these other countries in here, I was kind of surprised. So I got 45.8% French and German. French and German people descended from ancient Celtic and Germanic populations and inhabit an area extending from the Netherlands to Austria. I don't know tons about history. I actually hated history. I was more of like a math and science guy, but as I get older, history is becoming super interesting. I've heard a lot of people say that as they get older. Makes sense. So I think you got to kind of get some experience in life before you can understand history. So Germanic populations, from what I know of basic history, were some very early tribes, and then up here in Europe somewhere, and then they came down and descended into areas like the Netherlands, Austria, Germany, stuff like that. So French and German people all came from Germanic tribes, and Germanic tribes were savages. Those guys were hardcore. I've looked into a little history on the Germanic tribes and some of their traditions and things like that, and very, very fascinating stuff. So they predict I had ancestors in Germany, Netherlands, and France within the last 200 years, which is interesting. 17.5% British and Irish, descended from Celtic, Saxon, and Viking ancestors. It says I have ancestors in the UK in the last 200 years. And then 7.1% Scandinavian. Had no clue we had Scandinavian in my family. But I think this explains my grandpa's cousins, who were all like 6'9" and above. Like, I'm talking gigantic people, not just tall people, gigantic people in my family. So me and my brothers are all pretty tall. I'm 6'3". My brothers are both 6'6". My grandpa was 6'3". My mom is like 5'11" and athletic. My dad was over 6 foot. Got a bunch of huge people in my family. So the Scandinavian thing is not a huge shocker. Eastern European. Let's see. That's an interesting one. Broadly Northwestern European is kind of a shared DNA. They can't really isolate it down to an exact area, but so yeah, it looks like, it's hard to say for sure, but there's a lot of European in there, it's all European basically, except for we got this 0.1% East Asian and Native American, which is, from what I've been told, Genghis Khan. I can't imagine how else I would have 0.1% of anything. That would have been from so long ago. But I think that's Genghis Khan blood. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows. but I have heard that many, many men share Genghis Khan DNA. So that's my DNA test right there. And basically the reason I find this interesting and the reason I wanted to make this video is it's just more data. The reason I made this channel is just, it's for information, it's for education, it's just for data. It's for people to study. People can look and see and figure things out on their own in their own life and compare it to what I'm doing. And basically what we got going on here is I'm a fully raw, primal carnivore eater. I just eat raw meats, oysters, eggs, milk, honey, stuff like that. And I'm perfectly healthy on it. I feel great. I have absolutely no desire to ever eat a plant ever again. I don't crave plants. I don't crave fruits. And this might be why. Like I said before, we can get lost in the weeds studying genetic stuff. You can get really lost in the weeds and just kind of on the wrong path in general if you start worshiping science and start basing all of your research on science. So, I wouldn't recommend getting too deep into the genetic stuff because it's kind of irrelevant at this point. You can't change it. But it's good to know that this may be a factor in why people eat different types of foods. I'm still learning as I go along here. I know that I'm perfectly fine on meat and fat. When I first kind of started eating meat and fat and the carnivore thing, it felt so good to me, and it revolutionized my mind and body so drastically that I thought this would happen to everybody that ate meat, and I think a lot of people do this in their lives. Something happens to them, they assume that, it's going to happen to everybody, or because it happened to me, it should happen to everybody. Maybe it doesn't happen to everybody. Maybe everybody that eats meat and fat, they don't get that extreme energy burst that I get, the extreme mental clarity, it's almost a powerful feeling. And I've gotten that my entire life from eating steaks and beef. I've always been a beef eater. I've eaten beef for dinner almost every day of my life. It was a staple of my meals. I always knew I had to eat beef, and I was never satisfied until I had beef at least once per day. So, and it was always cooked, but now I'm going raw, and I feel a lot better on raw. Yeah, there's some information there for you. We got my genetics there. They're pointing towards, Europe, Northern Europe. We're talking Scandinavia. We're talking some really cold, hardcore regions of the world where my ancestors evolved from, that there wasn't a lot of plants, there wasn't a lot of fruits, and it was survival of the fittest up there, and we were eating animals. So this might be a huge factor in why the whole carnivore primal diet clicks with me so well. So that's why I wanted to post this video, is to show people that we might be different, we might eat different things. It's possible. I'm not going to say that I know the answers to everything. All I know is my experiences with this diet, and all I know is my genetics and my heritage. So if we can all present data in this form that I'm doing, as far as showing what I'm eating, the results of what I'm eating, my exact genetics, how I feel about everything, we could possibly come to maybe a middle ground as far as, what certain people should be eating and why. But right now it just seems like it's just everybody's arguing over what everybody should be eating, possibly not considering that genetics play a factor. And this is semi-interesting. This is my ancestry timeline. It kind of shows how far back your ancestors were. Eastern Europe, it looks like, and I knew I had Eastern European, but The Scandinavian, it says, I most likely had a great-grandparent, second great-grandparent, third great-grandparent who was 100% Scandinavian between 1830 and 1890. That's pretty fascinating. I'm going to take a wild guess on that was on my mom's side through my grandpa, because he talks about how all his cousins were 6'9" and 6'10". It's like unbelievable. Some of our family pictures are ridiculous with these guys. Maybe I'll post one of those one day. British and Irish. Looks like I had a grandparent, great great grandparent that was 100% British and Irish between 1860 and 1920. Not 100%, but I'm gonna guess. I couldn't even tell you if that's through my mom or dad. French and German. I most likely had a parent, grandparent, or great grandparent who was 100% French and German. I'm guessing this is through my dad, because I believe the French came through my dad's side, but couldn't tell you for sure. But I think the French and German came through my dad's side, and possibly the British, Irish, and Scandinavian came through my mom's side, because my mom has a bunch of Irish. So yeah, that's how I got all my genetics right there, and hopefully this can possibly help everybody out in figuring out this big mystery of what we're all doing here and why we're eating what we're eating. I almost forgot about my Neanderthal genes. I have 302 Neanderthal variants, or Neanderthal, depending on how pretentious you want to sound. That's more than 87% of 23andMe customers. That was the biggest mind blower out of this whole genetic test, that I'm super Neanderthal. I'm a pretty big guy, pretty tall, kind of stocky. I've always been bigger than like almost everybody, and I'm not bragging about this, but stronger than everybody that I've ever known. And I wonder if this has something to do with Neanderthal. So if anybody has any clue on this, on Neanderthal and what they ate, I would love to hear about it in the comments. So I know a couple things about them. They had different shaped skulls, they had sloping inward chins, and they had kind of more protruding noses. Here's what's interesting. I've always thought that I had kind of like a slightly bigger head than most people in the back. And it looks like I could have evolved from somebody that had a sloping inward chin, because my chin and my jaw do not jut out. You know, they're not out like that. They're actually more kind of like that. It's not recessed like that, but I can see how I could have come from someone like that. And then also, it's kind of funny. We all joke around in our family how we have the same nose, and it's this like protruding out, straight bridged thing. So I don't know. I don't know if our noses specifically came from Neanderthal noses, but we definitely have straight out noses. Neanderthals are super fascinating. Like, the only thing I've ever known about them is I just thought there were these like brutish group of almost ape people, but I don't think that's true. I guess they had a run for like 600,000 years. So these guys were successful for a very, very long time, and then they got wiped out by modern humans somehow. So anyways, I don't know. Does this have something to do with my propensity towards eating meat, eating fat? Who knows? Does it have something to do with why I'm bigger and stronger than most people I know? I have no idea. They also said Neanderthals had bigger skulls and bigger brains too. So I don't know. It's all interesting stuff. I thought I would definitely include this. Hey, if anybody else has got some super Neanderthal, let me know. Maybe we're distant cousins or something. We should get together for family reunions. All right, guys. Have a happy holidays.